It's important to know when and why to use compression, but before we get into that, I want to go over some of the basic controls on a compressor. So, threshold is the point in which once our audio goes above that the compressor will start reacting. So, we're going to use this 808 bass drum as our source. Let's look at with this meter how loud our 808 is at its loudest point. Negative 7.5. So with our threshold, we're at 0.0. Nothing should be happening with this compressor. We're not getting a reaction, and you can see that the level doesn't reach our threshold. So let's pull this down, and we'll get below that 8 dB mark. So now that we're getting above that threshold, we're starting to get a reaction. And the more extreme we go, the more compression and the more reduction we get. So as far as where to set the threshold, that becomes a taste thing, and your ears have to get used to compression. Some people, it takes a while to hear compression and really understand what it's doing. So musically, you'll decide where to put this threshold when you're mixing, and it really just depends how much compression you want and how often. If you were to imagine this to be a dynamic performance of, say, a guitar or bass, and say the loudest point of most of the notes is -8, but sometimes, the bass player really digs in and he gets up to like -5. So you may not want to set this for part of the song. It might sound great down here, and then when he starts to really play hard, it might start to over compress. And some of those issues, we will show how to deal with those later. But finding an average of compression is the trick when you have a dynamic performance. When you have a single one shot kind of sound like this 808 and you throw out the song, it'd probably be exactly the same, no dynamics, just the same level all the time. It's real easy to set because you just get the compression to sound the way you want and move on. When you're dealing with a dynamic performance, you got to kind of find more of an average. But for now, we'll stick with this nice even sound just to kind of show the controls. So I'm going to slide this over to 0 seconds, 0 minutes, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, and 0 milliseconds. And now let's talk about attack. So attack time is the time that it takes once you've crossed the threshold. It takes that amount of time to reach the maximum amount of compression that we've set here. Some people think that it's kind of a wait time or a hold time, that once you cross the threshold, it's going to wait that long before it compresses. That's not right. It's actually the length of time it takes to go from zero compression to the max amount that based on our settings. So if we are at 18 milliseconds and our sound starts at 0, and we know that our sound is definitely above the threshold. So instantly we're going to start compressing. So it's going to take 18 milliseconds from the start to reach our maximum compression. So if you look at our time up at the top, there's 20 milliseconds. So that's very early in our sound. So we're gonna be compressed really quick, all the way down to let's see where we're at. So we're right about 3 dB. So to go from 0 dB to -3, it basically takes 18 milliseconds. It's really quick.